This right here is Canon's first mirrorless camera, the Canon EOS M. It's rumored to shoot 5K RAW and even have anamorphic modes, but does it really deliver on its promises, or is it just another gimmick? So I've owned this camera for a few months now, and I can say without a doubt, it's an amazing camera for the price. You can get it from anywhere between $200 and $300 depending on what comes with it, and overall it takes amazing stills and even video. So I've had this camera for a few months now, and I can say it's a really good camera for the price. Coming in at $200 to $300 depending on what kind of package you get, it's a phenomenal camera and incredibly tiny and fits in the palm of your hand. However, I can say that it doesn't quite live up to all the hype around it. Part of that just being it's an old camera. Old camera means old sensor, which means not as high quality, and you're gonna have to know that going in. However, a lot of the rumors surrounding this camera are true and definitely worth looking into. Here it is, the Canon EOS M. As you can see, it's incredibly tiny and super lightweight. On the bottom right here, we have our battery and SD card slots. As you can see, the battery is super small. However, it does last a very long time, and I haven't had issues with it yet. Memory card slot is right there, and there's a single 1/4-inch screw mount at the bottom for attaching things like this handle right here, which is one of Canon's attachments, because honestly the grip at the front kind of sucks. This is a great attachment if you need more grip, especially if you're a photographer. Now, as we can see right here, it is very clearly APS-C with a 1.6 times crop. However, it's definitely not that big of a deal because most of the time you don't really need full frame anyways. If you're a wildlife photographer and you want extra reach, or sports photographer, that'll actually help you out. On the side right here, we have our mic, HDMI, and AV out. On a camera that's a decade old, that's incredibly shocking. But what's more shocking is the touchscreen on the back. On the back, we have our touchscreen. So with this dial, you can control your shutter speed, your aperture if you were using that, and your ISO. Sliding, dragging, incredibly responsive. You can just tap, you can drag and slide. It's incredibly useful and intuitive, and I really actually like it. Now here you have a menu setting with just a typical Canon setup menu, and as you can see, this does not have Magic Lantern on it right now. Magic Lantern is installed on whatever SD card you use, but I don't have that on this particular one right here. Now here we have our playback menu. Obviously the dial you can rotate through, which is actually really impressive on these older cameras because there's a lot of newer cameras, including the Nikon I'm shooting this on, that the D-pad doesn't even have a rotating wheel. Even newer cameras like the Canon R8 don't even have this. So if you really want something that's functional and has a lot of features, this really comes jam-packed with it, which it should considering it is Canon's first mirrorless camera and they have to dress to impress. Now on the top right here we have 3 modes: auto, photo, and video. I haven't quite figured out how to make this work. However, if I turn this on, let me just pop on a lens. As you can see, I'm currently on video mode and that looks fairly bright, but if I pop it over to photo, it will get real dark real quick, and I have no clue how to fix this. As you can see, you can kind of see things moving in the frame, but it's super dark and barely visible. Go back to video, everything's suddenly visible again, and it works just fine. As you've probably noticed by now, I have an adapter on here. That's because the Canon EOS M has an EF-M mounting system, not just the typical EF we see these days, or RF if you're shooting Canon's newer mirrorless line. Now that's not a big deal. These adapters come with all their electronics for probably about, I think I bought that one for $50. So it's not that expensive if you're just buying the camera and the adapter. You can use all existing EF glass that you already have lying around. Of course, I have a vintage lens on here because I simply like shooting with vintage lenses, especially with this camera. One thing about the EOS M is that it shoots kind of grainy, almost film-like because of its old sensor. Just remember, old doesn't always mean bad. Sometimes it just means character, and I think with the EOS M, you get a lot of character. So when combining that with things like vintage glass, you get some really cool and interesting images out of the camera. So let's take a deep dive into the EOS M and see what it really looks like and how it performs. Overall, I do think this is a phenomenal camera and probably worth buying at some point or another. However, if you're expecting it to be this awesome cinema camera that's going to fix all of your problems, it is most certainly not that. for $200 to $300, you are never going to get your problems fixed. You're going to have to spend more, invest more, and honestly, buy stuff that isn't third party. You have to get from original sellers and not try and find workarounds. Workarounds can result in corrupted memory cards, lost footage, and unnecessary work you're creating for yourself. For fun, creative stuff on your own, it's a great camera to have in your arsenal.